Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast, The Road Less Traveled. We are here with Stephanie, and I am incredibly excited to have her because not only did she struggle at the very early on stage of entrepreneurship, decided she was going to go out on her own from struggling with infertility, but then also going, what's most important in her life? If you want to know someone that has dialed in the time she spends on work and time she spends on family, this is the girl you need to listen to. She has insight that is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so excited to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to start out with when you sent in your intake form, we've talked about it, your struggles with infertility, if I can speak.
Yeah, you can say it.
But that's a hard road.
Yes.
And you were working for someone else at this time, correct?
Yeah, I was navigating 7 years of infertility, and all the while I was working for somebody else the whole time.
Yeah. And when you did that, how did you decide? And then you had your daughter, but how did you decide to go out on your own? Because that's a scary venture.
I think there's a key here. I think the key piece was I had a coach. So that was something that I have been valuing for years. And I had been working on what it is that I actually wanted. So it wasn't just, you know what, I had a baby and now I'm going to go out on my own. It was something that I had been creating for a while. Now, on my own and what it looked like, maybe I wasn't as clear. But prior to getting pregnant, all those years that I was working for somebody, I love my leader. He is a fantastic human being, but he was mentoring me the whole time and training me up and building me up. And so he said to me, when you have your baby, you're going to take one look at her and you're going to say, see ya. And I was like, no, I don't know, maybe, whatever. I had no idea. And I did. I gave birth, and suddenly my time became incredibly more valuable. I don't even know what the math is on that. It's some sort of mom math. I'm not sure. But my time became incredibly valuable. And I cared about what he was doing in his business. And I knew I was no longer able to be the leader that I was in his business for him anymore because of my time commitment. I couldn't give the time that he needed. And he understood that. He was very respectful. And we worked together and partnered. And so when I went out on my own, I had a coach that I was working with, and I actually still work with her, but she helped me understand that I have this ability to create the life I want. And so I just got really clear. What does it look like? And how fun would it be if I got to create that versus all the fears and worries about creating it, right?
Yeah.
So it was nerve-wracking, but I literally was 3 months postpartum and quit my job. And within that first month, I got 3 new clients right away. And it was really fast and totally fun. I don't know how else to explain it. I would say, I was maybe a little bit scared, but I had this, if you've ever had a child, there's something in you that wakes up.
I have 3.
So. There was something, I'm sure every single child, there's a similar experience, but
I want to hone in on something that our viewers can't see, though. Anytime I've ever talked to you and anytime I've ever sat down with you, one thing that I notice do very well, you're very strategic what you say to yourself. Yeah. Like, normally going out on your own would be very, very scary. Yeah. I mean, I remember the day. Yeah. But somehow you've honed in on how to speak to yourself in a way, and you're very, very strategic on what you say. How long has that been where okay, what I say out loud is actually affecting me, so I need to make sure I say it correctly? Because you'll even pause sometimes, go, wait, let me think about how I want to say this first. And it's interesting because we'll have conversations, you'll pause for 10, 15 seconds, go, okay, how do I need to say this? And then say it, and it's very powerful how you say things. How long has this been to really hone in on that?
I love that you picked up on this.
Well, the viewers can't see it. And people out there a lot of times use words, and it's actually using it against them.
Yeah, the power of your language. So I that's a great question. so this is me pausing and thinking, right?
No, that's fine.
So what I do is I actually check in with my body, as crazy as that is. Sometimes I'll say things like, wow, this is hard. And then my whole body is like, that's not true. We just like haphazardly say things, right?
Yes, we do.
We're like unintentional about it. And we're like, oh, this is a super hard thing and I got to deal with this, you know? And like my body is like, oh, is it hard?
Yeah.
And then I think, what do I actually want to create? What do I actually want to feel about this? And so instead I'll say, oh, this is new or this is different. And that came from my coach. She kind of helped me change some of my language. But over the course of the last maybe year and a half, 2 years, I have been very aware of the power of my language in a sense that creates the world around me. So I had a client. I'll be vulnerable here. I think that's the whole point of this.
Yes, it is.
I had a client that I jumped. I had raised my prices as a coach, and I had jumped a significant jump. I had never raised their prices in 2.5 years. But all the while in the 2.5 years, I had been jumping slowly but surely, but I made a pretty big jump. It was more than double, right? And it took me, I was so nervous. It took me about 6 months to just tell them. I had been saying, I raised my prices, I got to get it to you. And then I'd put it off because it was too terrifying. Like just because I changed my language doesn't mean I'm not afraid, right?
Exactly.
So I finally did it, but I had they're going to stay with me. I had dreamt up and what would be fun, like them sticking with me and not being afraid of the price and the progress that we'd make together. And then all of a sudden, I decided I did it. I got the gumption. I sent the email. They knew it was coming. And they wrote me back and said, actually, we're not going to proceed. And it was a really beautiful email. Like the email was basically, please don't let this be a reflection on the work you've done, which I'm grateful for. I wasn't doubting my skill set. I knew that I had helped them grow in revenue significantly. I had seen that. I knew that they had been kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off and the best and worst ways. That's an entrepreneur to the T if you're not really organized and got your systems working. I had organized and helped them with all of that. I couldn't have done it. They're the ones that did the work. But I think it was also a very natural parting of ways. I think that's why I was so afraid, was because I kind of knew it was going to come. And I'm sitting in the car with a girlfriend. We had just gone, I think we went to Costco together, kid-free. It was like a vacation.
Every aisle.
Yeah. Excuse me. And I get the email, and I witnessed, without judgment, what I was feeling. So what I mean by that is I was like, oh, I even heard my past, like the past record player in my mind say, this sucks. This is going to be painful. What are you going to do? What's your plan? You counted on that revenue. What do you, all the list of all of those things. And I just kind of witnessed them almost like I was sitting in my own movie theater and watching on the screen. Like, okay, you're sitting here, your body's starting to feel the anxiety, right? And feel the worry and the fear. And then I kind of just said, what do I actually want to feel with this? What do I actually want to create with this? And I was just so aware that I didn't have to be victim to the past habits, but that I could be very deliberate in deciding what I actually wanted to feel, but that was authentic. Like, I'm not going to be like, I just wanted to feel like Disneyland right now.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's not what we're talking about, right? I did some more awareness. Like I just kind of sat there in the car and I talked to my friend about it, and I was having a hard time explaining it because I didn't understand what I was feeling. And then I went home and I told my husband, and we started talking about it. And then I kind of got quiet and I just thought, what am I feeling? I'm actually feeling grief. I'm feeling sadness that it's time to part ways. It's not really the anxiousness about what's going forward, but because I checked in with myself, I didn't have that same narrative anymore. I was able to just say, oh. So then I started saying, wow, I'm really grateful for the time we had together, and I'm really looking forward to what is to come. And so because of that, because I became super aware of how I wanted to be, I actually ended up meeting with them that night, the next morning, and closing things out that later that week with them, because we had already had it on the calendar, and that's who I am. So I didn't come from a place of fear or worry or what do they think of me. I came from this place of leadership. I came from this place of knowing that it's okay that we're parting ways and it's okay to keep things in a really good relationship. And I can be nervous too, all of those things. So that's I've been doing this for a while, but that's like a culmination of a really cool moment of deliberately choosing. And then it was right after that I got invited to a ton of networking groups. And I got 2 more clients like right away. And my point to emphasize here is I got to honor the grief, but that I got to create that there is future opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And still sit with the grief and the worry, but also create what I wanted to. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
But
It definitely answers it. I think entrepreneurs have to really sit back and really try to figure out what they're feeling. Because sometimes when something happens, we jump to a conclusion that we're feeling something, but in reality, it's not.
Yeah, and it's maybe not serving us anymore.
And it could be grief, because when you lose a really top level of employee, sometimes grief can be masked from madness or, anger and all these different things. So you have to be really clear about what you're truly feeling, which I like how you do it. And we've sat together, so I see it, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you've actually asked me the questions before when I'm going through something. But how often do you feel like you have to sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, and really get them to understand this fact of everything they're doing about, hey, you really got to figure out what you're feeling, and the words you use are actually either an asset or a liability to you?
Yeah. Great question. So actually all the time. So it's like the number one thing. When I'm doing coaching and I'm coaching these businesses and their teams to level up, they have these big goals. I want to go and do this really cool thing, climb to the top of this really cool business mountain, right? Sorry.
You're fine.
And I can't wait to go do it, but then they repeat things like, well, I don't have the right team. My team sucks. Or, well, that person can't do it. I mean, I've worked with business owners who literally were like, my team is not going to be able to make that happen. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. I'm not afraid of when they say that, right? All I can see is fear. Mm-hmm. You're just afraid. It could be that they're afraid to get to that mountain, even though they're hungry for it. But if they can become aware of what their words are creating and the power of them, then they change them from, what if I have the best team ever? And what if that doesn't mean that today they're exactly what I'm looking for, but they're what I need today, and when the time is right, they'll either see themselves out or we'll find the right people, and it'll just become a perfect flow, but that all of it is working together for the creation of where I'm trying to go, right? So changing that thought process. So I do it pretty often in coaching sessions, and some of my clients, they can jump right into the systems and they can jump right into implementation. But in the meantime, I have to have high level conversations on how to go into a difficult conversation without the anger.
Oh, yeah.
Without the, look what you just did to me. Like, look what you're doing to my company. How could you say that thing and ruin this with a client? Or, all the frustrations, because this is your baby as a business owner, not theirs. Okay. So, how do we get them to lead in a way that multiplies their team members? Usually
leaders have to level up every level, like 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, because it's leader down, right? Mm-hmm. And until the leader understands that, they're going to struggle with these words, and they're going to struggle with, oh, my team can't do it. But the problem is 9 times out of 10, I see this, I'd love to have your opinion on this. Yeah. If a leader says that, they're either scared to put the money into the team because they're afraid they're going to leave, or they're scared to trust them because they want to hold on with dear life to do everything. Yeah. Tell me how often you see that.
So my mentor calls it the art. Becoming a CEO is the art of relinquishing control.
Yes.
So all I hear is this leader doesn't know how to relinquish control. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know how to go to sleep at night and comfortably sleep through the night, because what if this person didn't get this thing solved? Or what if my team members don't know what to do, and am I even on the right trajectory, and do I have the right plan in place, and I got to solve all these people? You don't start a business excited to lead a team of people. It's not why people are starting, right?
Nope.
They're really excited to grow and serve and maybe make some more money for themselves and be maybe hopefully with their family more. Usually that's kind of what it stems. And then you hire B and C players and they take you from your family. And then you're like, why would I keep hiring people? I spoke to a gentleman once years ago. And I said, tell me where your revenue is at. Because if I can understand revenue, then I know immediately what their pains are for the most part. So I said to him, what's your revenue at? And he said, 8 million. He said, I grew my business to 8 million. And I said, wow. But the way he said it wasn't like I'm there today. The way I grew. Yeah. So I said, kind of knowing, okay, he's not there today. So I said, so where are you today? I just point blank asked him. He's like 500,000. Yeah. And
ouch.
Knowing what I know about 7 figures, it comes down to people, culture, leadership, systems.
It does.
So knowing that, when he told me 500,000, I wanted to hear it from him, but I almost could have filled in the gaps. And I just said, what happened? And he said, I just couldn't figure out the people thing. I couldn't figure out my leaders. I couldn't figure out my hiring. He's like, it's just easier to do it myself. So, I'm looking at this kind of question that you asked me and looking at the art of relinquishing control. It's kind of unique to be able to want to invest in your team when you don't have the right team. And that might mean you have to scale back a little, let the wrong people go, to go ahead and be intentional about hiring the right people. Or it could mean that you become okay with the ebb and flow, that we start bringing the right people on. There's kind of a balance here because you have people who are going to do damage to the new people, right? Like if they're going to disrupt the culture that you're trying to build.
You have to be careful.
You have to be very careful, right? And then on the other hand, leaders who are micromanaging, all that tells me is they just don't know how. And so that's their solution. Let me just hold on a little tighter, And I think it just comes down to them being needing to learn a new skill set. The skills that got you to where you are today are not the skill set to get you to the next level. You have to develop something new. Right?
100%. I was sitting down with someone on Friday, and they were like, "It's just easier for me to do it myself." They lie on their resume, they do all this, and I said, what's your training process?
But do you hear that? They lie on their resume?
Yeah.
Look at that story, that belief, okay?
And so I said, what's your onboarding process? What's your hiring process? What's your training process? And they looked at me with a stared look, and I said, how long do you stay with them?
Yeah.
How long do they shadow you? How long do you shadow them? He was like, what? Yeah. No, you should put them in a seat. I said, no. Starbucks, they're selling an experience, but Starbucks has a 30, 90, 60, 90-day training program. And that's Starbucks.
Think about In-N-Out for a second. They actually have In-N-Out University. You can't step foot, from my understanding, in an In-N-Out working without going through the university first.
Chick-fil-A has something like that.
Yep.
Like, the wording is so important to Chick-fil-A and the time they spend, but it's an investment. And so many times entrepreneurs look at it as money going out the door instead of money coming in the door. I look at it as, okay, if I'm going to buy real estate, I'm going to invest this money because this is going to give me a return. Same thing goes with the people that we hire. Do not, viewers, if you're looking at this, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, listen to Stephanie. Do not just put someone in the seat and go, just take care of it. Because it also doesn't show that you care. And they don't care until how much they know you care.
100%. Yeah, well, and I could not agree with you more. I was like nodding my head so big. I was like, oh, yes, because there's a piece here that when you hire, lead and fire to something that's really clear for the entire team, I call it a clear vision. When you hire, lead, and fire to a clear vision, then the people that you're hiring, you don't just hire and hope they fill in a seat. You hire as this investment. When you hit 7 figures, no longer is sales and marketing your biggest concern. Yes, I don't stop. Okay, do not stop. Please don't get that out of this. But the skill set you have to learn is how people are your greatest asset. They're your greatest resource after you hit 7 figures. Because before then, you usually have 2, 3, maybe 4 employees. Then you get into 6, 7, 8, 9. You should be a little higher in revenue at that point. Yes. And as a result, you've got to lead them. It's no longer your job to do as the CEO. It's your job to lead.
to lead. And 9 times out of 10, that means you need to have someone else train them.
Yes.
You don't have the time. So often, the CEOs or the entrepreneurs, the owners of the business think, I have to train them. The problem is, let's be honest, we're too dang busy for it. And so what we do, we go, I'll train you. Oh, wait, I got a phone call. Oh, I'll train you. Oh, wait, I got to get this email. And it doesn't work. And so very quickly I found out, okay, they got to go through a training program. So we have a training program and they go through with someone else, not me, because I wasn't giving the time and effort to my team that they needed.
Yeah. But that's somebody else. Let's talk about that somebody else for a second. Because I think with business owners, you're like, sure, that sounds really cool. But how do I make sure that that someone else cares about my business and is willing to teach them the way that I want them to be taught? So tell me about your someone else. Like when you hand it off, how do you know that someone else is the right fit for you to take care of your business the way that you know and would?
Well, first of all, I had to give up the idea that I could do it best. Okay.
Okay.
It just
surrender.
Surrender. Second of all, I hired someone that was really good at processes and architect in business. And so then they sat with each team member and then they would bring it back to me and say, hey, this is the process I built. How do you feel about it? And so I'd watch the video, I'd watch the documents, and we'd go through it for about an hour. So instead of me spending, 30, 60, 90 days with someone, I would spend an hour after they brought it to me, and then they would spend the 30, 60, 90 days. And so I would approve or deny, and I'd say, okay, I like this, but this needs to be changed. That way I knew the process were being documented like I wanted, but I didn't have the time to document every change, because processes, every time you level up, guess what? They got to be changed.
Yeah.
And every time you have to be willing to pivot, evolve, and make sure that you're evolving as you're growing. Because a $500,000 business is so different than a $3 million or a $10 million
different.
or a $100 million. And those processes are not the same.
The
And
only thing
people
constant is those processes changing.
Yes.
Right.
And so I had to make sure first, like going back to your question, I'm not the right person. Understanding I'm not the right person. I'm the visionary and I'm the leader. And once I realized that and got myself out of the day-to-day, actually the business did a lot better.
Isn't that interesting? Usually I say all problems in business are a leadership problem.
Oh, it is.
It's a bottleneck. If you don't get out of the way, the team can't run. If you don't have the right team, well, that's a different story, right?
I think so. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Sometimes I see that entrepreneurs don't want to make the right team. Meaning, the reason why I say that is because we are scared. I remember when I first started, we were scared to give up our baby. We don't talk about it as an investment. We talk about it as our baby. Well, I'm not giving my firstborn child over to someone. I held on to that child like, oh no, this is really bad, but even handing off to my own mother or my mother-in-law was sometimes hard because he had trouble in the hospital. But anyways, we talk about our businesses sometimes as our babies. No, they're not. They're an investment. It's completely different. And if we will allow ourselves to understand we are not good at everything and we're not the best at everything, but normally we are visionaries, because that's why we envision the company. And normally we can be a good leader if we learn how to be.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of identity that gets wrapped up in the creation, because if I'm successful, then I'm a good business owner or I've created a good business, right? There's a lot of, so I'm thinking about just in what you said, like they become our babies, and then we begin to identify like, this is, who am I without this? This would be terrifying. What if I failed? What if it all crumbled? And so instead we come from a place of, and I'm thinking about even developing leaders, or like if we were to hand something off to somebody. So if we come from this place of, I believe that my identity is wrapped up in this business, that the only way I'm going to be successful in this life is to have this on my headstone. I mean, really think about it. Nobody's going to put what business you ran on your headstone.
Nope.
But we spend how many hours a day worrying and stressing about our business and forgetting about this life maybe that we want to create, that it's hard for us. We're stuck. I always kind of put my hands above my eyebrows and like shape this viewfinder that only allows me to look down, because that's what's happening. We're unable to say, hey, I need to step aside. And so we do it pretty harshly. Like, I've seen business owners step aside so quickly that things fall apart because they're like, well, that's what you told me to do. Well, no, that's why I call it the art of relinquishing control. Art takes time. It takes finesse. It takes learning and skill set and development. It's not a simple just like, okay, well, that's what I did. It's fine-tuning here. It's fine-tuning there. It's changing your language. It's all of those kind of details of development for your leaders. So relinquishing control to one person to manage that means you have to get clear yourself on what is it that this investment, this business represents. What does that look like? And how do I get clear? And I define it through, I mentioned vision. And I break it down. Jim Collins wrote a book called BE 2.0, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. His original book was Beyond Entrepreneurship by James C. Collins. It was his first book. He wrote it with Bill Lazier, I think is who it is. But BE 2.0, chapter 4, he talks about core values, purpose, and a mission, and what those look like. I recommend anybody listening, go read it. It's really a great book, number one. And number two, it's going to help you get some clarity around how do I create a way for me to relinquish control? Well, first, we need to get really clear about the plan that's in your head and put it on paper so that the next team member that you're going to trust with your hiring process can know what is it that Tiffany is representing. And by the way, I'm so bought in because it's also mine, because I was either hired to it and I was trained up in it, or I co-created with Tiffany. You know, I'm using you as the business owner, right? But whatever that looks like, it's a really cool path to be able to relinquish control because you get buy-in. And that's key, right?
It's really key. I love that you talk about core values, mission statement. You know, we've talked about leadership, learning. I'm going to go back just a step though. I find that leaders, when they let go, like you said, they like, all right, let go, I did it, but now it just sucks, right? Well, the problem is they don't realize there's a core thing that has to happen so you're not a micromanager.
Yeah.
When you hire someone, you put someone in that position, not only do you have to have the processes, you have to have key performance indicators.
Yes.
You have to have numbers. Because the worst thing is to go up to someone, hey, did you get that done today? And then go back and go, and then audit it on your own and go, it wasn't done like I wanted it done. It wasn't done like you were supposed to do it. You got to go back and do it again. So all of a sudden you have mistrust, and then all of a sudden they feel micromanaged. But if you have the clear path like you're talking about, but then you have clear metrics that they understand what the metrics are, then guess what? You just get the metrics sent to you on a daily basis or a weekly or monthly. We do daily because I'm that fanatic. But then you go, okay, how's my team doing? And then when you have metrics, guess what? You got to meet on those metrics. How many times someone asked me the other day, what's your favorite meetings? I said one-on-ones. And they go, don't you feel like that's a waste of time? I said, no.
I love when they say, don't you feel like it's a waste of time? Because it is what did I say earlier? Your number one job is to invest in your team. So when they tell me it's a waste of time, I'm like, oh, you don't know your role.
You don't get it.
You don't know your role. You think you're still a doer. Your job isn't to do, it's to lead. Right? Anyway, okay, keep going. I just had to highlight that.
No, I love it because in your one-on-ones, you can see in the eyes of your employee or your team member what's going on. When you get face-to-face, you can see their body language. You can see, are they having a hard time? Is it family or is it business?
But Tiffany, I do it in the car when we're running an errand together. But I also do it. I check in. I talk to them all the time. I had a sales meeting with them. I had a marketing meeting with them.
Yeah, but how well do you know them?
That's
the
my
meetings
point.
are different. Exactly, like what you're saying. Like when you're in a sales meeting, you have too many people around. And depending on the DISC profile, like my favorite test is the DISC profile. Yeah. Depending on the DISC profile, your C's aren't going to pipe up. Your D's will. They're always going to be loudmouths. Obviously, I'm a D. So, I mean, the problem is you need to know each team member. And my favorite thing is, like for my C's, because they're quieter, I'll say, hey, how's the volcano doing? Because C's, if you know your team real well, you understand they don't like to talk about themselves. But they can talk about a volcano. They can say, well, it's great. Or it's exploding. It's exploding. It's over. And then all of a sudden you know, okay, they're not doing well. Okay, what do we need to do here? What's going on? You know?
And this is where I love this because I loved the volcano thing. I've never heard that before, but it's such a brilliant way to allow somebody to describe what they're feeling without it becoming super personal, right? Very brilliant. I just wanted to highlight that. But the other thing I was thinking is a lot of business owners get afraid to talk about how their team members are feeling because what? It's going to become, that's all we do. Then I care only about them as a human, and I can't make the tough decisions to let them go if I have to.
You got to do both as a leader.
Oh, yeah. You got to balance care at the center with both caring about the individual and the cause.
Yeah.
Right?
When you're talking about the business, you got to be able to make decisions without emotion. When you're talking about the people, you got to be able to make decisions without emotion if it's fire and hire. But when it comes to them personally, you have to be able to feel. You have to be able to care. Otherwise, why the hell are they here? They're not going to want to be here. Yeah. It's not 1933. I hate to say it. It's different. 1933, everybody worked in sweatshops. It was like, hey, just get the dang job done. Humanity has changed. People have spoken up. And when you show you care, 9 times out of 10, a person will do more than what's required because they want to they want approval. They want to be led. Humans want to be led and they want approval. They want to do a good job 9 times out of 10. Unless you really do have a bad apple, then you should fire them. Yeah. You know?
Yes.
But I find 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. I mean, I've had my bad apples, trust me.
Have you had a leader lead you in a way that's multiplied you versus diminished you?
Yeah, I've had many.
Can you tell me a story of that?
Oh, you switched the tables. What the crap?
I'm a coach. I can't help it.
You are a coach. Oh, I'm going to tell you a story about my high school basketball coach.
Okay, tell me.
Oh, I might get teary-eyed on this one. Because I've thought about it a lot lately. And she saw things in me, demanded the best, demanded almost perfection, demanded everything out of me. But somehow always showed me she cared. And I'm even going to say, people will go, well, that's abusive, Tiff. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I knew she cared. There was one day we were playing defense, and I was on defense, and we were prepping for a game. And I was sitting, and in help, you have ball, you got deny, you got help. And I was in help, but I had turned my head, and you always, I remember this because of what happened. You always see the ball in your man. It doesn't, you just do. And all of a sudden, I had this ball coming at my head, and it hit me. And it wasn't like, I don't think she meant to hit my head, but it taught me real quick. And in today's age, you probably can't do all that. But I remember many times we would sit down, and she would talk to me as a leader, and because I was point guard. I played varsity my freshman year of high school, and it was just, she rallied our team in a way. And the time that she spent with us, she always was showing us, you know what, now I'm going to backpedal a little bit because she always showed us by action. Now that I think about this as you asked me, she showed me by action. She was always there. I remember 9/11. I was in high school, and I walked in, and she was like, hey, how are you doing? I was like, my dad's in New York. I haven't got a phone call. Or some of his team was in New York, whatever. I thought he was in New York. And I walked in, and she just gave me a hug. She was, hey, let's call him, And she could have always been the line. She could have always been, like, the hard. But I remember one day I was sick as a dog, throwing up at home. I went to practice because I wasn't missing it.
Oh, she tapped into your discretionary effort.
Yeah.
She got to your heart. You showed up not for her, but for yourself, but because of her loyalty and care for you. Right?
Like I learned, there's a lot of mentors I had, but the more I think about who taught me, one person, I had other ones, but who taught me how to really work hard when the suck happened.
To keep going.
Keep going. When I fell down, when I had almost a broken ankle or gushing blood down my face, it was like somehow she tapped into something that. So I think that's why when I was on food storage, it was like, I'm not giving up. I'm going.
You had it in you. I already had the fight. You knew how to call on it, right?
So like I absolutely look, and I just messaged her the other day, and I just said, you're the best coach I've ever seen. She tapped into it. I mean, I've had other mentors, but I think a mentor is really important.
It's really cool for you to acknowledge that for her. The reason that I asked you to tell this is so powerful, is because I wanted anybody listening to see it's not different in business. It's not different in business. Now, please don't throw a ball at somebody's or accidentally throw it, whatever. I'm not advising, that. But I am saying, when the going gets hard, go pull your desk and set it next to your team members if you're in office. Go be in the battlefield with them, right? Or there's a book, Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. It's a great book about how to lead from a place of multiplying versus a place of diminishing. We diminish more often than we realize, me included. Like, this isn't like I'm always multiplying.
Yeah. I think it's human nature a little bit.
Yeah, it's human nature. But to recognize, that we talked about that earlier, the intentionality of becoming aware of what I'm doing and then changing deliberately, right? But I love that she tapped into your discretionary effort, and it's because she cared about you as an individual. But I also love that she saw you beyond what you saw yourself capable of. She treated you with the capacity of who you were capable of being. And because of that, you rose to the occasion.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do as a leader.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she has a way, like, just last year, all of us, our team, went and flew out and to go see her and congratulate her because she's in the WNBA now coaching. Wow. And just got recognized and the fastest growing coach and stuff like that. And it was interesting to sit there. We all got teary-eyed because we were all there and we all consider ourselves sisters because of her.
Isn't that interesting?
It was just, and I look at that, I'm like, she tapped into something that I, on a whole different level that I didn't know was possible.
This is where it might be getting a little too touchy-feely for most business owners.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, I don't want to do that with my team. But, how much time are you spending with your team on a daily basis?
A lot of time.
Yeah.
You have to.
Why can't you create the team family that you actually want and not be a victim to like, well, I had to hire somebody for this role, so that's just who they are. Versus what if it could be like, man, I heard of some companies through COVID that they were willing to go without a paycheck for a certain amount of time, but still work just as hard. Wow. Because they cared about the company. They cared about the leader. They cared about what they were doing. They didn't want to go somewhere else and find a job. I'm not sure if they could. I wasn't there to speak to that. But they didn't want to go looking for somewhere else. But they were saying, you know what? I'm in this with you. What happens on teams, you're in a battlefield together. Business is similar, right? We have to go through the hardships, the ups and downs of revenue, how do we solve this problem? I went to, if you don't mind, I'll tell a story.
I love it.
I went to one of my clients. They've been struggling with their leaders buying in. They say with their mouth that they're bought in, but then their actions are continuously repeating old habits dying hard. And I said, I literally can't take it anymore. I'm coming over. And I flew over to where they are. And we had, I didn't know this till after, but they didn't tell anybody I was coming. And so when they walked through the door, they were all like, I've seen your face on Zoom. Like, I know who you are. And wait, you're here. It was kind of a funny little surprise. But I got really uncomfortably honest with them. And I basically said, if we as leaders don't unite in the cause together, we will never reach this cause that each of you individually care about. But I can see that there's an us versus them mentality with each one of you in each of the departments. And I'm not sure where we get off on this, but somehow it's like we just can't get past this. So today, we're going to have some really difficult conversations. So I want to balance caring about the individual and the cause here. So I cared about these leaders and what they had to say, but I still wanted to make sure that the cause was adhered to. So what we ended up doing is I basically taught them about, I kind of brought them back to the basics of leadership development, about what was expected of them as leaders. We talked about talent gap. The company can grow, but if the leaders don't grow with the company, then we have a talent gap. And what happens, a natural stagnation of revenue, or it goes backwards, right? It goes down. So usually they're like, why can't I grow in my revenue? Well, are your leaders growing? Is the team growing with the company? Are they meeting the expectations to make that happen? So what we did is we kind of got honest there. And then what we did is we decided, or I kind of had decided this at a time, but I helped them feel like it was also their idea. And what we did is we co-created a list of ideal leadership. So we talked about who their mentors were. we made a list of like all of these really cool qualities of what an ideal leader is. And we continued to add to it. We even created a list of what an not ideal leaders look like. Like a bad leader, a diminishing leader, because we wanted to make sure to also call that out. And in the meantime, we also got really honest, what we called brutal facts. Without pointing fingers, what are the realities of the business today that are keeping us from the growth that we are so desiring? And so they said some really tough things. I mean, a couple of them, they said, you don't need to call me out. I'll just admit it, And we started having these really, really cool, honest conversations about, what that looks like. And then I asked the two owners to leave. And I said, what I'm gonna do is I want this leadership team without the owners to tell me, what are the owners doing that are keeping the company from the growth? Ooh, that's painful. It's really uncomfortable. The owners didn't know I was doing that ahead of time. And after they left, one of the team members said, you're going to get fired after this. And I said, I just know it's because I'm right. Like I'm not worried about getting fired, and it's not even arrogant. It's that we cannot progress without getting this out on the table. We cannot get past the us versus them without being heard. That's caring about the individual. They want to be heard. Just because they want to be heard doesn't mean we have to do everything they say. It just means we give them a voice, right?
Love that.
Yeah. So I was just giving them a voice. So then what we did is we created this whole list, and then I had them for the owners, what all the things, and the list wasn't even that long. It was maybe 15 items. It wasn't like super extreme or severe. And then we went back to the brutal facts list, and I said, now I want you each to identify one thing on this list you can own that you're doing right now in front of each other that's contributing to the lack of growth in the company. And because we had gotten so honest and they got to unite on the owners, we got to come back and they took 2-3 things on the brutal facts list. And then I gave them a heads up and I said, we're going to bring the owners back in. And in front of them, I would like you guys, you're pointing this finger at them, but you first, right? You first. We are pointing out and saying that the owners are doing all these things, but what on that list are you also doing? Because it's not just really about them. It's about all of us.
It is.
And I told the owners, I said, listen, you're going to come in. You're not going to like it. And I don't need you to be defensive. In fact, I don't want you to defend yourself. It's not a form of weakness, because all they need is to be heard. All they need to be heard. And then watch the change. Just watch the shift. So they came in. They asked some clarifying questions. I was very proud. They did not take offense. And they weren't defensive at all. But I could see like her sitting up a little straighter in the chair, maybe like bouncing a little bit, just a little nervous. But we got through the list. They asked some clarifying questions, which was really important. We needed to understand. And then I said to them, now I'm going to have your team identify. They pointed this out, but them first, what that looks like. And so it was really cool to watch this leadership team all take ownership. And then we proceeded through the conversation the rest of the day with becoming an actual united team. Okay, we got the ugly stuff out. Now let's create the future together with all of our voices, with all of us being heard. We may not do exactly what you say, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear what you have to say.
Exactly.
Right? And then it was really cool. All of a sudden, their revenue's starting to increase. Their team is way more aligned. Are they perfect? No. They're still having some tough conversations. But now the leaders themselves are no longer having to make these decisions alone. They can go to the team and say, hey, guys, we need to make this tough decision together. And instead of them just getting frustrated and saying, well, it's not my job to figure that out, they're coming together and saying, I can see where this is probably going to be a hard thing. Now they're way more united, and the growth of the company is totally changing. Now, the coolest part about all of this is at the end, we took that leadership list that we were developing, what makes a great leader and what makes a not so great leader, and we gave it to them and said over the weekend, this is who we're looking for in leaders for this company. We need your commitment, written form in an email, accepting or rejecting if you wanted to continue on with us as a company. So now we're getting them to show up and own the fact that they agreed to the kind of leader the company needs. Now the owners, when they're leading, they can say, hey, team, remember, including the team below them can say, hey owners, remember, this is who we're supposed to be. Let's step back into that because it feels like we're losing sight. So now we've got that accountability. It may not be an official KPI, which I love KPIs, but it's a form of accountability, right? And so they're doing that. They're having that conversation. All but one leader, she said, I know that I don't have what it takes, and I'm okay with it. I'd like to stay in the company in a different role. And now she's owning that she wasn't the right person. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be ugly, you know? It gets to be beautiful. And she owned it. And she gets to tell who she wants to tell and how it's going to unravel. And anyway, it was really cool balance of individual and the cause.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden they were able to now way more united take off, you know?
I think it's so important what you're talking about here. And I want our viewers to really understand this. Giving the team a voice is incredibly important. Because if it's really leader down, the team members need to be able to give feedback to the leader. And so many times it's hard. I remember when I started the company, that was the hardest thing for me. I don't want to open up. I don't want to open up the can of worms. Just let it be. Just let it be. It'll be okay, right? Yeah. And then I hired a number 2. And he came to me and he said, Tiff, can we talk? And I said, it was one of those can we talk? And I'm like, oh, crap, I better shut my mouth.
Less talks are no good.
Yeah. And he said, can I be open? And I said, yes. And he said, we need to change the culture of the company. And I'm like, okay, talk. What are you seeing? Because I agree with you. And he goes, the team needs a voice. We need feedback. We need different meetings that allow them to give the feedback and to be heard. And so I addressed the team and I just said, look, we want all the feedback. And we started doing certain meetings. And when they came on, when we did this, I said, please understand, just because we don't take your idea doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. But because someone else said something, we bring those 2 ideas together, then we get the best outcome.
The most relevant.
The most relevant. Like, so continue the ideas. That's how we brainstorm. That's how we get to the best. And I love that the leaders sat there because I think that's something as leaders, we have to be able to go, they see something we don't.
Yes.
They see, they're in the day-to-day, first of all. And second of all, they see where we can improve too. And without looking inward and going, how can I improve? We can't improve. We have to be able to get feedback and we have to be able to go, how could I have changed this situation? How could I have been better?
Right.
You know? So I wanted to end on KPIs real quick because the one-on-ones, I would love to know how you do it. How we do it is we do 10, 10, 10. So our KPI meetings or one-on-one meetings are about 30 minutes. For me, I block out about a window of 30 minutes afterwards just in case someone's struggling. But first 10 minutes is they come in, they tell me whatever they want. What's going on in their life? It does not have to be business related. You name it, you can talk about it. Second 10 minutes, I talk to them about what I see, how I value them. Third 10 minutes is KPIs. We talk about the numbers. Hey, how can we improve? What do you see? What are your struggles in this? These are our KPIs. These are our metrics we're supposed to be hitting. Where are we falling short? And how can we improve these? What do I need to do as a leader to support you? And so I find my last phrase of every meeting is, what can I do better to support you better, to help you elevate to where you want to go, wherever that may be.
Do they like it?
Do they
answer?
Yes, they do answer because if it's the volcano people, like if I get fined, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to dig, you know?
Yeah.
You know, no. This isn't just a fine.
You don't just accept it.
You don't just accept it. No, you've got to talk to me.
That's because you care about them as an individual, right?
So I make a lot of them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you don't make people uncomfortable and they are saying fine or good, that's not the true answer.
It's not real. I love how you do it. I haven't heard of that way, but I would say my way is almost identical, just laid out just slightly different. So I want to back up, though, a little bit. I base their key performance indicators off of their quarter. So we do quarterly performance reviews. We don't wait till the end of the year. Yeah. So we don't wait till the end of the year to give them feedback. We're doing feedback every quarter, and we're basing the key performance indicators based on the role, not the individual.
Yes, 100%.
Because if it's not on the role, then and it's just on the individual, then maybe we're not getting out what we actually need for the organization to succeed. So we have to base it off the role itself and what is required of that role this quarter to get us closer to maybe our annual goals, what our mission is, whatever that looks like, right? And so from there, we measure weekly. Like you said, I have them report even daily, right?
I have numbers come to me daily, but my meetings for one-on-ones are weekly.
Okay, good. Great to clarify.
Yeah.
So with that, they're 30 minutes, and I've split it in half, 15 and 15, but I like the expectation of the 10 of you giving them feedback. So it's so the first 15 minutes are spent on them. Hey, like as a leader, and the other thing, I call them self-reporting one-on-ones. This is their time, not my time as a leader. This is their time. Now, just because it's their time doesn't mean I'm going to stop leading and just kind of let them own the time. If there's questions I have, if there's things I need answers to, we're going to talk about that, right? But the first 15 minutes are really about what it is that's going on in their life, what it is that matters to them, even the role itself or within the business or maybe a team member they might be trying to navigate tough things with. Whatever that looks like for them, we check in. And then the last 15 minutes are spent on their performance. And it's them self-reporting, hey, here's where I'm at. I don't feel like I'm doing very well. I could use some help. Or, hey, I'm doing great. But you as a leader are like, you aren't hitting the goal. So let's talk about that, right? And having those honest conversations. But because we have invested in caring about them, when we have to go into their emotional bank account and withdraw and say, hey, you're not hitting that goal like we thought you were going to, they're way more inclined to give answers because you have been depositing consistently into their emotional bank account, right? I don't know if emotional is the right, but it's that I feel cared for bank account, right?
So it's the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Every time there's a negative, you got to have 5 positive.
Yeah.
So very true.
Right. So I'm thinking about your coach who did certain actions and did certain things that when you have an almost broken ankle, you're like, I'm still showing up, because that's what I do, because that's the discretionary, that's the being withdrawn, the withdrawal of the emotional bank account. So it's the same thing where in the last 15 minutes, we talk about their progress and what they're doing. And that's where they own where they need help and ask for help. Or I always tell my leaders, if they're not asking for help, but you can see, I always say, ask for permission. Are you open to some feedback? Are you open to some insights that I'm having? Are you open to idea partnering? I rarely have met somebody that says no.
Yeah.
They're not going to say no. You're their leader. They're going to say yes. But when we ask for permission, there's some psychology behind this.
Oh, I like that.
They're physically opening up, like they are taking the ownership of yes, I am open to what you have to say. Because oftentimes as leaders, we just go into, okay, well, I can see that you're not hitting this goal. And what's going to happen?
They close up. They get defensive.
They're like, okay, well, let me tell you how hard I'm working. Let me tell you what I had a leader. It was the first time this had happened with this leader, and I was not hitting a goal. And I felt like I was a sales goal, and I literally joked that I talk about your power of your language. I cannot give this away. Nobody will take it, even for free. Like I was saying this. I was struggling so bad, but I had 8 months prior of hitting the goal or exceeding the goal. But this particular month was like, it went down in history where every year around this time I was like, oh no, it's September. Okay, change my language, because I had a little PTSD from this. I was trying to get 10 people in the room at this event, and it was a high ticket event, and I couldn't even give. I tried to sell it to somebody for $2,000, and they wouldn't even take it. It was like, you don't even know what you're missing here, right? And I remember I went into my quarterly review, and I felt like I had let down the team. I had let down my boss. I had let down even the potential people that were supposed to be in that room. But I had so much head trash going on up here. And my leader, in the performance review, we looked at the numbers. We were super honest about them. He asked me how I felt about it. He said, are you open to how I'm seeing things? And I said yes. And even though I'm I'm crying. I don't even cry at work, but I was like I really felt like I had let even myself down. You know, it was just this really disappointing moment. And he said, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a really great person believing something that's not true, and it's causing like a ripple effect of your actions. You are creating because you're saying. Mm-hmm. So what he actually had me do, he said, if you're open to it, what I'd like you to do, and he gave me this list of like 15 impossible quotes. It's about how possible the impossible is. So right? True. And he said, I want you to read these out loud every day for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
And then he said, and then I want you to read them once a week for 4 weeks after that. And then I want to talk about what's changed for you. And I mean, they were cheesy quotes. Like
those are some of my favorite to be
honest. I know. But I mean, they weren't like these most profound. Yeah. It was more of like, I think there's a quote from Audrey Hepburn that says, the word impossible literally says, I'm possible. Right? It was like that, right? It wasn't like the most profound and suddenly my mindset had been changed, but it's because I deliberately was choosing to say them out loud, I started to embody the belief again. I was like, he saw me. This wasn't a team member that just constantly failed and now I got to write her up. I could see this team member had gotten so in her head that I know what she's capable of. That's your coach, seeing your capacity and demanding that you step into it in like with the most care possible because you see their potential, right? And so anyway, after that, I never missed that month again, and I never missed it. You know, I don't know that I got 100% every time, but I never had that low of an experience, and it really taught me when it comes to that time in the one-on-ones, and that we built this relationship of loyalty and care, even with each other, from me to that leader. We were able to transition into this. He could tap in and say, hey, I'm demanding this of you, and like reach down and try and pull me up even if I was nervous and scared. But then ultimately it made me hit higher goals. I reached higher goals because of it. So I don't know if that even answers your question about the KPI thing, but I'm looking at this saying, how do you balance the care about who they are? He knew who I was. He knew what I was capable of. And the one-on-ones give you a chance to know that. Not just the quick interaction over another meeting, not just we're running to the car to go get a drink together, you know, like a coffee, but the actual time spent learning about them. And then they actually get excited to hit the KPIs. They're like, I can't wait to do this because I know how to win in my role. It feels super good, right? So
it does feel super good. Mm-hmm. Feels good to win. We all want to win. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, I could talk to you forever. Yeah. Forever. But we have come to a close. If you want to know more about Stephanie and her coaching career, which she has done a phenomenal job, where can they reach out to you?
You know, I don't have a website. Okay. I don't even really have an Instagram because the work I do is really one-on-one. Okay. That usually I connect. So if you want to connect with me, email me, stephanie.hitchins@gmail.com. I'm sure you'll put it somewhere for them to see. It's the easiest way to connect with me. If you guys have more questions, I'd love to answer them. But
perfect. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you or want to have her on your podcast, visit tiffanyrosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.